Pain shot through me, but it wasn't physical, it was the way the world seemed to crumble as my knees buckled beneath me. The dinner table blurred, the clinking of cutlery turning into a mocking rhythm. "Dad, he's pretending again," Emily whispered, loud enough for the shame to slice through me. Her eyes weren't worried. They were dismissive, impatient. My own daughter thought I was a fraud. I tried to speak, tried to tell her I wasn't pretending. But my throat tightened, my voice gone. My chest heaved with humiliation. How did I become a stranger to my own family? Clara knelt beside me, her hand brushing mine, but she didn't look at me. She didn't meet my eyes. There was something there, a flicker, a hesitation, but she said nothing. "Ambulance." "Please," I rasped, my voice breaking. The paramedics moved quickly, lifting me into a gurney. Clara stepped back, coldly composed, avoiding my gaze. Bye. My heart twisted. If she truly cared. Why did it feel like I was already alone? As they wheeled me away, I realized it. Everyone I trusted had secrets. Everyone, Claire included. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're listening in the comments. I stared at my phone like it had betrayed me personally. The numbers on the screen refused to make sense. My savings, all of it, had vanished. Painstakingly earned dollar, gone, siphoned out of my account like water through a sieve. I could barely breathe. The room felt suffocating, the walls pressing in. My heart thumped erratically, not from the loss of money alone, but from the horrifying realization that the ones I trusted most were the ones who had cut the deepest. Emily leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, an expression of indifference on her face. Her smirk was a knife twisting in my chest. "I needed it, Dad. Don't make it a big deal." I felt as if someone had slammed into me. You took everything?" My voice shook. "Do you even understand what this means? Every plan, every security, every little piece of me you just destroyed?" She shrugged. "You worry too much. Chill out." I sank into the couch, trembling, my mind spinning in disbelief. How could she be so casual, so careless with my life? And Clara? She stood just behind her, watching silently. Her hand brushed my shoulder briefly, but she didn't meet my eyes. Her calmness wasn't comforting. It was a verdict. She knew. She had always known. I looked up, voice breaking. "Clara, you knew." "You knew." She tilted her head, expression unreadable. "I didn't stop it, Daniel." "Maybe you should have been more careful with your money?" The words hit harder than Emily's theft. The warmth I had imagined in her care was gone, replaced by cold indifference. I felt my chest tighten, my blood run ice cold. This was betrayal at its purest, sharpest form, not just theft, but the deliberate choice to watch me crumble. Liam appeared in the hallway, hesitant. "Dad, Mom, Emily, what's happening?" His voice carried suspicion, confusion. I wanted to pull him close, to tell him everything would be okay. But even I wasn't sure it would be. "Liam, it's complicated," I managed, my throat tight. Emily rolled her eyes. "It's just money. You're overreacting as usual." Overreacting. That word echoed in my mind, stinging. Every plan, every night spent worrying about our future, every scar of responsibility I carried reduced to overreacting. My hands clenched into fists. I wanted to shout, to shake them until they understood the gravity of their betrayal. But I forced myself to stay still, because if I reacted the way I wanted to, they'd win. I buried my face in my hands, feeling hollow, shattered. Yet beneath the devastation, a strange cold clarity emerged. A whisper in the chaos, "I cannot let this destroy me." I straightened, eyes burning with quiet fury. They thought I was finished. They thought I was broken. But this pain, this humiliation, would not define me. Not now, not ever. I looked at Emily, at Clara, at Liam standing uncertainly in the doorway. They underestimated the depth of what I could endure, and I would endure. Needed a plan, careful, quiet, patient, one that would not only protect what was left of me, but make them realize, in their own time, the cost of their betrayal. For now, I would let them think they had one. Let them bask in their false triumph, because when the time came, they would see what real consequences felt like, and I would be ready. I stood in the middle of the living room, my chest tight, hands shaking. The air felt thick, suffocating, as if the walls themselves were pressing in, weighing down on me. Clara was seated on the couch, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her sleeve, eyes cast downward. Emily lounged in the armchair, crossing and uncrossing her legs with an unsettling calm. "Clara, why didn't you stop her?" I asked, my voice a mixture of anger and disbelief. "You knew what she was doing, you just watched." She finally lifted her gaze, eyes glossy but hard. "I was afraid, Daniel," she whispered. Afraid of Emily's anger, afraid of losing her, I thought. If I intervened, it would tear us apart. I didn't want that. The words struck me, but they weren't comforting. They weren't excuses. They were an admission. Fear, love, selfishness, all tangled in a way I couldn't untangle. "You let fear guide you over your husband's trust?" I asked, voice rising. "Do you have any idea what this feels like?" Clara flinched, then shook her head. I thought I was protecting everyone. I didn't see how much it would hurt you." Emily's smirk widened, and I felt bile rise in my throat. "See, Dad did everything for this family. All the little things you never noticed. Late nights, working 2 jobs, keeping the house running while you ignored me, and now you act like I'm the villain?" I blinked, trying to process her words, but my mind kept returning to the numbers on my bank statement. Sacrifices?
What?
Sacrifices justify stealing every penny, every ounce of security we had. My voice was low, but each word cut deep. "You call this sacrifice? Taking what isn't yours? Betraying the one person who trusted you?" Emily's gaze was steady, almost challenging. "You never noticed, Daniel. Never appreciated me. I had to make my own way. You think you care? But you were always distant, busy with work, with your own life. Maybe this is the only way you'd ever see me." I staggered back, clutching the edge of the dining table. The people I had loved, trusted, devoted myself to, they all had secrets, and maybe I never really knew them. Not really. My daughter, my wife, they were strangers, wrapped in familiar faces. "Emily, Clara, I don't even know who you are anymore," I whispered, the words tasting like ashes. Every memory, every moment. Was it real or just a mask? Clara looked away, ashamed, but Emily didn't flinch. She leaned forward, voice softening. "In a dangerous way, Dad, there's something else. I didn't tell you yet because I wasn't sure how to." My heart lurched. "What do you mean?" I left. "A file on your computer, encrypted. You'll see soon. It explains some things. About the house, about money, about why I did what I did." A cold sweat broke over me. My stomach sank. "The house?" I asked, my voice tight. "You talking about?" Emily stood slowly, smirking. "Just wait. You'll understand soon enough." I felt a wave of nausea and disbelief crash over me. Betrayal was no longer a single act. It was a network of secrets, hidden motives, silent fears. And now, with the mention of the encrypted file, the walls of my world threatened to collapse entirely. Clara's eyes glistened, but she said nothing. The silence between us was deafening, loaded with the weight of all the truths we hadn't spoken aloud. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, to break something, but I knew that nothing in this room could fix the damage already done, as I made. My way to my computer, hands trembling, a chilling thought settled over me. Emily wasn't just taking my money, she was taking everything. And what she planned next. I had no idea if I could stop it. The screen blinked, waiting. The encrypted document glowed faintly in the corner, a silent promise of a betrayal even, deeper than I had imagined, and I realized, with a sinking heart, that the worst was yet to come. After the confrontation with Emily and Clara, I couldn't stay in the house. I wandered the empty streets for hours, my mind buzzing with a mixture of rage, disbelief, and humiliation. The night air bit at my face, but I barely noticed. Every step echoed the same thought. How could they do this to me? How could I be so blind? When I returned, Sophie was waiting on the porch. Her presence was calm, like a quiet harbor in a storm. She didn't smile. She didn't ask questions. She just watched me with that sharp, knowing gaze. "You look like a man who's about to break," she said, voice low, carrying weight I couldn't ignore. "I am broken," I admitted, my voice raw. "By my own daughter. By my wife." "How? How can they betray me like this?" Sophie shook her head slowly. "Betrayal is a cruel teacher. It reveals the truth about people, but it doesn't have to destroy you. You have to see it differently, Daniel. Revenge. It's hollow, subtle. Power is stronger." I frowned. "Subtle power? What do you mean?" "Control," she said simply. Not loud, not dramatic. Quietly, you regain what they stole, your security, your dignity. Let them think they've won.
Attack them.
When the time comes, the tables turn, and they won't see it coming. Her words sank into me like ice, cold but clarifying. I hadn't realized it, but she was right. Yelling, pleading, demanding. It wouldn't fix anything. It would only make me look weaker in their eyes. I sat down on the edge of the porch, gripping the railing until my knuckles turned white. Quietly regain control, subtle power. I repeated it in my head.
Ice.
Slowly, clarity began to pierce the fog of betrayal. I could survive this. I would survive this. "They think they've stripped me of everything," I muttered, voice barely audible, "but they haven't. Not yet. And when I rise, when they see me again, they'll regret." "Ever doubting me?" Sophie nodded, as if she'd been expecting me to say that. "Good. You feel it now, Daniel? That spark? It's the beginning. Use it." I spent the next hours alone in the study, my computer open, fingers shaking as I documented every betrayal. Emily's withdrawals, the financial manipulations, Clara's silence, all logged, all backed up. Evidence I could use, not for dramatic confrontation, but to quietly ensure the consequences landed where they should. Then I froze the remaining accounts, ensuring Emily couldn't touch a single cent more. She hadn't expected me to act not. Yet that gave me a small, satisfying edge. I smiled briefly, the first in days. Not a joyful smile, but one of quiet determination. Clara's complicity gnawed at me. She had enabled Emily, even if out of fear. But fear could be leveraged. Quietly, subtly, I could expose it later, not for revenge, but for justice. Sophie's voice lingered in my mind as I worked. Subtle power is stronger. By the time the night was deep and the house silent, I had a plan for small steps, careful moves, each one designed to reclaim what had been taken from me. I didn't need to confront them yet. I didn't need to yell or break down again. That time had passed. This was the moment of quiet transformation, the point where betrayal became fuel instead of poison. I felt a strange calm settle over me, one I hadn't known since I discovered Emily's theft. When they looked at me again, they wouldn't see the man who collapsed at the dinner table. They wouldn't see the man crushed by heartbreak and disbelief. They would see someone stronger. Someone who had survived their betrayal. Someone who knew how to turn hidden truths into silent power. And when that day came, they would regret. Ever underestimating me? I watched Emily from a distance, pretending to scroll through my phone as she bragged to her friends about an expensive weekend she supposedly funded herself. I smiled faintly to myself. She had no idea that I'd already frozen the accounts she'd drained. Leaving her bragging on borrowed money. "She's hiding something," whispered one of her friends. Glancing at her suspiciously, Emily laughed, a little too loud, too forced. "What do you mean? I didn't have to intervene." The seeds of doubt were planted. Quietly, subtly, I was watching her crumble from the inside, and it was satisfying in a way that felt nothing like revenge. It felt just back at home. Clara approached me, her voice almost a whisper. "Daniel, she's losing friends already. People are talking." I held up my hand, stopping her before she could apologize. I'm not doing this to punish her, Clara. I'm doing this to reclaim what she stole, what we both lost. But yes, it seems karma has its own way of showing up. Clara's eyes filled with tears. I never meant for any of this. I was scared. Didn't know how to stop her without losing her forever, and now she's falling apart. Her voice cracked, and for the first time I understood the depth of her fear, her conflict, and the subtle selfishness that had allowed the betrayal to continue. Meanwhile, Liam had been quiet for weeks, but I noticed the subtle changes. He lingered near my office door when I worked late, offering coffee without words, leaving small notes that only I would understand.
Dad, he said one night, I'm on your side. I always have been. I see what she did.
I know it, Clara. Did you're not alone? His words struck me harder than any confrontation with Emily. My son. He saw the truth, and he didn't judge me for being weak before. He didn't roll his eyes or whisper. He simply chose to stand with me. I felt a surge of something I hadn't felt in weeks. Connection. Loyalty. Not the kind you demanded, but the kind you earned. And maybe, just maybe, that would matter more than anything else. Over the next days, I continued to work quietly. A misplaced bill here, a subtle rumor there. A text casually hinting at Emily's suspicious bank activities reached Marcus, her coworker, who prided himself on sniffing out drama. I didn't message him directly. I didn't need to. One careless comment, one fleeting hint in the circle of tension widened around her. One evening, Clara came to me again, her hands trembling. Daniel, she called me tonight. She's scared. She doesn't know why, but she feels trapped. I studied her, and for a moment, I felt a pang of pity. Then I reminded myself, I wasn't doing this out of malice. I wasn't doing it to humiliate anyone publicly. I was doing it to survive, to reclaim my life, to expose truths that had been hidden for too long. Good, I said quietly, letting the words carry weight. Let her feel the consequences. Let her face reality. Clara flinched but nodded. For the first time, I felt her as an ally of necessity rather than a co-betrayer. Maybe she could be useful after all if she learned to face the truth. At dinner that night, Liam lingered near my side, a small smirk tugging at his lips. You're really playing this smart, Dad. I didn't think you had it in you. I looked at him, trying to hide the thrill in my chest. It's not about smart, son. It's about surviving. And making sure those who hurt us learn quietly what real consequences feel like. Emily didn't say a word at the table that evening. Her laughter was gone, replaced by a careful, watchful silence. I watched her bite her lip, glance at her phone, and shift uncomfortably. The first cracks were showing, and I was patient enough to let them grow. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of control. Not the kind that came from shouting or confrontation, but the kind that came from watching everything unfold exactly as I had predicted. I would rise quietly. And when the time came for Emily and Clara to truly understand the weight of their choices, they wouldn't just regret what they did, they would fear it, and I would be standing there, calm, unshaken, stronger than they had ever imagined. I watched Emily pace the living room like a caged animal. Her phone buzzed incessantly, each call and message pulling her further into panic. Creditors, Marcus, friends, all questioning her. She tried to keep her composure, but the tension in her shoulders, the way she flinched at every notification, betrayed her completely. Dad, I don't know what's happening, she muttered, voice tight, finally looking at me. Panic laced her words. Everything's falling apart. It's not my fault. I let her flounder. My hands rested calmly on my desk as I replied, then explain it to me. Explain why your finances are collapsing, why Marcus is asking uncomfortable questions, why people are doubting you. She shook her head, her eyes wide. I don't understand. Something must have gone wrong. Yes. I was careful. I could hear the tremor in her voice, the first real cracks in her carefully constructed world. I didn't interrupt. I didn't need to. Her panic spoke for her. Then Clara stepped forward, unusually determined. Emily, I can help you fix this. Her voice was hesitant, but I saw it, the subtle deflection, the attempt to shield her daughter. I know some people. I can call them. Maybe we can buy you some time. Tilted my head, watching. Closely, I had anticipated this. Clara's instinct to protect Emily was predictable. She feared confrontation, feared being disliked, feared the fallout, but I knew her too well. Clara, I said quietly, but firmly, I appreciate the offer. But I think it's important for Emily to face the consequences herself. You know? Lessons learned. Her eyes widened, guilt flashing briefly, but she didn't stop. Instead, she whispered to Emily, "Trust me, we can make it right." I pretended to frown, my chest tightening with a quiet, almost imperceptible smile. She didn't realize I had already rerouted her little lifelines. The calls she thought would save her were carefully manipulated to trap her further. I had anticipated every move, every protective instinct. Her schemes wouldn't fail because of me. They'd fail because I let them fail. Emily's phone buzzed again. This time, Marcus's name appeared, followed by a string of frustrated texts. She froze, reading aloud. Marcus says, "He's done waiting. If this isn't resolved today, he's reporting everything to HR, and everyone else will know about the loan discrepancies." Her voice cracked. "Dad, please, help me." I shook my head slowly. "You had help before, Emily. Maybe it's time to see what happens when you stand on your own. Carefully, quietly. You'll learn who truly matters." She swallowed hard and flopped onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. Her friends, still messaging, were starting to pull away. The carefully constructed image of control she'd shown everyone shattered. I glanced at Clara. She looked torn, guilty, and I knew she had already warned Emily. Perhaps given her little tips. But every gesture she had made to protect her daughter only tightened the net I had quietly woven. "Emily," said my voice low and calm, "this isn't about me against you. This is about truth and accountability. You thought you could play your games and hide behind lies, but the truth always finds a way." She flinched at my words, as if they cut deeper than any creditor, any threat, or even Marcus could. And I felt something strange, quiet satisfaction. Not cruelty, not vengeance, just the clarity that I was finally no longer helpless, no longer the victim. I was calm, I swear. I was finally in control. Emily looked up at me, eyes wide, desperate. I don't understand. "Why are you? Why aren't you angry?" I leaned back, letting the silence stretch. "Anger doesn't fix anything, Emily. Understanding consequences does. And you're about to understand them very clearly." Clara averted her gaze, her lips pressed tightly together. I knew she was thinking of how she could help again, but I also knew I had already used her fear and loyalty to my advantage. Subtle power, quiet patience. That's how this would end. Emily sank back into the couch, the weight of her own failures pressing down on her. And for the first time I saw her not the daughter I had tried to trust blindly, not the charming. A woman who had taken from me, but someone forced to face reality, and I had already won. I found Clara in the kitchen, her hands wrapped around a mug, staring out the window as if the storm outside could erase everything that had happened. I walked in quietly, but she sensed me immediately. "Daniel." Her voice was calm, but it carried a tremor I'd never noticed before. I didn't answer. I watched her, waiting for the truth to spill, the same truth she'd held back for too long. "Clara, how long?" I asked finally, my voice low but not calm. "How long did you know about Emily siphoning my savings?" Her eyes flickered, guilt mingling with something darker. I told you, I didn't know everything. I tried to protect you and her." I stepped closer, anger rising like a tide I had barely kept contained. "Protect me? Protect her? Or protect yourself? 'Cause from where I'm standing, you watched my life unravel, and you didn't lift a finger until it suited you." Hands trembled as she gripped the mug tighter. "I was scared," she admitted, voice cracking. "Scared of Emily's anger. Scared of losing. I don't know. Control, I suppose. Maybe envy too. You've always been the one people turn to." I was just always behind. I froze for a heartbeat, shock mixing with a bitter sadness, envy. Fear she was confessing that she had. Hidden more than just small details. My own wife, morally gray, and now painfully human in her flaws. You envied me? I asked softly, disbelief softening the edge of my rage. Her gaze dropped. Not just you. Everything you have. And maybe a little of what I thought Emily had too. I wanted to protect you, yes, but also wanted to be seen, heard. I thought if I stayed quiet, I could manage the chaos without confronting either of you. I sank into the chair across from her, the words hitting me harder than any betrayal I'd endured from Emily. So you let everything happen. All of it. And watched me, your husband, be treated like a fool. And all because of fear and envy. Tears shimmered in her eyes. I didn't know how to do the right thing, Daniel. I was weak and maybe selfish. But I love you. And I love Emily in my own way. I closed my eyes, inhaling slowly, letting the mixture of fury, sorrow, and revelation settle like ice in my veins. I thought I knew you, I whispered. Maybe I never did. Before she could respond, a faint sound of footsteps upstairs caught my attention. Emily, that girl never stopped scheming. I went upstairs quietly, finding her in Liam's room, whispering, her voice dripping with manipulation. You have to talk to Dad for me, Liam. You're the only one who can explain that. He'll understand if you tell him it wasn't really my fault. Liam looked conflicted, eyes darting nervously between Emily and the door. I don't think I can, Emily. I can't lie for you. She grabbed his hand, desperation in her eyes. Please, just a little. Doesn't need to know everything. Just tell him a part of it. I'll make it worth your while. Stepped forward, voice calm, but deadly in its quiet certainty. Emily. She spun around, her face twisting in panic. Dad, no. Liam, say something. I cut her off before she could even finish, standing behind Liam, hand on his shoulder. Heard everything, every word, and I think it's time. You understand that manipulating family won't save you this time. Not when I've already planned for your moves. Her mouth opened, closed, tried to speak, but no words came. Liam exhaled, relief mingling with fear. I turned to Clara, who had followed silently, still holding her mug like a shield. You see what I mean? Your protection didn't help, hurt, only made it more dangerous for all of us. Fear and envy are not tools. They're chains. Clara's lips quivered, but she said nothing. I felt a cold, quiet determination settle over me. The lines were clear now. I had anticipated every move, every manipulation. My family's secrets were laid bare. And for the first time in months, I felt truly in control, not through anger, not through revenge, but through clarity and foresight. Emily's schemes had failed. Clara's complicity had been noted. And Liam, he had chosen integrity over manipulation. I smiled faintly, though it felt hollow. This house, these people, they've tested me. But I'm still standing. And for the first time, I understood. That surviving betrayal didn't require brute force. It required patience, observation, and quiet, unyielding strength. I watched the storm outside, but this time it felt like I was standing above it. Not in fear, not in despair, above, calm, collected. Emily's phone rang incessantly. I didn't answer it, let her drown in the chaos she had created. Had given up. Friends had stopped calling. Creditors were lining up like vultures. And now, finally, the consequences of her choices were catching up. Clara entered quietly, her face pale, a mug of untouched coffee in her hand. Daniel, she's desperate, she said. Her voice had that familiar tremor fear mixed with guilt. I didn't turn to her. Desperate doesn't mean untouchable. She shifted, hesitant. Leaving. Taking the house, some of the accounts, and going abroad. I didn't stop her. I froze, then turned slowly. Her eyes met mine, wide and terrified. You what, Clara? You knew she was planning to run, and you didn't? I didn't know. How? She whispered. I thought if I warned you, she would turn on me. I couldn't risk it. I let the silence stretch. Then I smiled, faint, controlled, dangerous. Clara, you just taught me exactly how predictable she is. You opened the window. I just closed the trap. Her lips parted, confused. Trap. Yes, my voice was ice. I've already frozen. The key accounts. Every transfer, every asset. The house. Made up legally. She won't leave without exposing herself, and she doesn't know I've done this. You see, fear makes people reckless. Reckless people make mistakes. Her shoulders sagged, relief mingling with fear. You planned all of this? I did, I said, calm, quiet, almost like I'd never been broken at all. Not out of revenge, Clara, out of necessity. She has to face reality. She has to see that deception has consequences. Suddenly, the front door slammed. Emily, wild-eyed, frantic, dragging a suitcase behind her. Daniel, you don't understand? I can fix this. I can stop, I said softly. But the words hit like a hammer. She froze mid-step, eyes darting between me and Clara. You thought you could run. Emily, I continued, voice almost gentle. But running is just another word for admitting defeat. I've anticipated everything. Every move you thought was secret, already accounted for. Her lips quivered, then formed a bitter smile. Clara helped me, didn't you? Clara flinched, but said nothing. I stepped closer, eyes sharp. Yes, she would have if I hadn't anticipated it. But that actually helped me. You see, desperate people drag others into their chaos. And now, you've dragged yourself into a cage of your own making. Emily's voice cracked. No, this isn't fair. Fair, I echoed. Do you know what's fair, Emily? Accountability. Consequences. Facing the reality you spent months trying to hide from. Everything you've built on lies is collapsing because you refuse to see the truth. She slumped onto the sofa, exhausted, defeated. And Clara, you knew? Yes, Clara admitted softly. I knew, but I was scared. I nodded slowly. Fear explains, but it doesn't excuse. You both made choices now. You face them. But make no mistake, I'm not cruel. I'm patient. And patience is stronger than rage. Emily's head fell into her hands. I don't know what to do. Start by understanding what you've lost, I said, leaning against the doorway, calm, untouchable. And maybe, just maybe, you'll begin to see the people around you differently. Because secrets, lies, manipulation, they don't protect you. They only make you weaker. Clara glanced at me, her eyes reflecting guilt, fear, and admiration, perhaps. You've changed, Daniel, she whispered. I smiled faintly. I had to. Shh. You can't survive betrayal if you don't. Evolve. Emily finally looked up, desperation etched into every line of her face. Daniel, please. I shook my head. No more please. This is where your choices meet reality. I've already set the stage. She sat there, trapped, surrounded by her own chaos, realizing finally that I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was orchestrating, quietly, patiently, powerfully, and for the first time in months, I felt that old, familiar pulse control. Not over them, over myself, over my life. And in that control, there was clarity. I let the storm outside rage. Inside, I was calm, unshakable, and untouchable. I stood in the living room, the weight of months pressing on my shoulders, but somehow lighter than I had felt in years. Claire and Emily sat across from my two women, who had once defined my life, now reduced to trembling, guilty shadows. Emily's eyes flicked to mine, desperate, pleading, but there was nothing left to plead with. I had anticipated every angle, accounted for every lie, every manipulation. She had nothing left that I hadn't already stripped away. You wanted power and freedom, I said, my voice steady, but you were blind. You lost more than you knew. Emily's lips quivered. I can fix it. I can know, I interrupted softly, almost pityingly. Fixing is not the point. Understanding is. You took everything you could, my trust, my money, my patience, yet you still don't see the cost. You've lost more than love. You've lost respect. And most importantly, you've lost me. Clara swallowed, hands trembling on her knees. Daniel, I was scared. I didn't know what else to do, she admitted, her voice cracking. I let her do things, terrible things. I stayed silent because I was selfish, because I feared, and I was weak. Please, forgive me. I studied her for a long moment.
Oh.
Fear, guilt, regret, all swirled together in her eyes. I could see the woman I once loved, the woman I thought I knew. But she had chosen silence over courage, cowardice over loyalty. Clara, I said slowly, I survived. I am not yours to control, and I am not hers. You will have to live with your choices. As will she. Emily's head fell into her hands, tears sliding down her cheeks. Everything, it's gone. Yes, I said quietly, almost tenderly. It is. Every lie, every manipulation, every stolen dollar, gone. And now, you see the consequences of chasing selfish freedom. Clara covered her face, sobbing. I never wanted this. I never wanted to hurt you. I only wanted to survive. Stepped closer to them both, calm, unshakable. Survival without integrity is not survival. It's a cage. You built it yourselves. I merely showed you the walls. Emily looked up at me, her face pale, eyes red, voice small. Daniel, please. I shook my head. No more please. You had chances, countless chances, and you squandered them. I'm not the man you broke, not the man you underestimated. I am not trapped in your fear, your envy, or your lies. Clara's sobs quieted slightly as she whispered, I'm sorry. I really am. I know, I said. But knowing doesn't undo. You can only move forward if you... Can I felt a presence behind me? Liam stepped into the room, his face serious but steady. He didn't speak at first, just stood there silently offering his support. I felt a warmth I hadn't realized I needed, Dad. He said finally, we'll get through this. Together. I nodded, feeling an unfamiliar peace. The balance had shifted. My son's loyalty reminded me that family could be rebuilt. Even if some pieces were irreparably broken. Emily's final gasp of realization came as she stared between Clara and me. I thought I was smart. I thought I could control everything. Controlled nothing, I said firmly. You manipulated, deceived, and betrayed. But true power isn't taken, it's earned. And you have earned nothing but regret. Clara looked at Emily with tears streaming down her face. You don't have to do this, she whispered, the guilt tangible. Emily shook her head. It's too late, she murmured. Everything I wanted, gone. I took a deep breath, letting the quiet fill the room. The storm outside had passed. Hours ago, but inside, there was a stillness I hadn't felt in years. I had survived betrayal. I had rebuilt my strength quietly, methodically, without rage or impulsiveness. I glanced at Liam. This is where we begin, not where we end. And for the first time in months, I felt it clarity, power, and freedom. The chaos they tried to impose on me had failed. It was untouchable, unbroken, and ready to reclaim everything they thought they had stolen. The house was quiet, too quiet, almost suspiciously so. I walked through the rooms, each one a reminder of the chaos that had once reigned here. Empty envelopes, past letters, reminders of lies, now just evidence of what I had survived. I paused. By the window, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and blood red, there was serenity in it, a promise that the storm had passed. For the first time in months, I felt peace. Real, unshakable peace. Clara appeared in the doorway, bags packed, a trembling hand clutching the straps. I need time, she said softly, eyes downcast. Time to think, to figure out who I am without hiding behind fear or envy. I understand, I replied calmly. Go, reflect, find the person you want to be. But remember, actions echo longer than intentions. She nodded, and for the first time, I saw no pleading, no manipulation, just raw vulnerability. Then she left. I didn't feel anger, only the strange, bittersweet relief of closure. Later, I received the inevitable updates about Emily. Creditors hounded her relentlessly. Friends whispered behind her back. Marcus, frustrated and impatient, had abandoned her entirely. She had nothing left but the shell of a life she had built on deception. I didn't gloat, didn't savor it. Subtle justice had its own weight, quiet but undeniable. I had let the consequences follow naturally, and they had. Karma, if that's what it was, had taken its course. Liam came to sit beside me, his young face serious yet bright. He said, "I've watched all of this, every betrayal, every secret, and I've learned something important from you." I looked at him, heart tight, but proud. "What's that, Liam?" He smiled faintly, the way only teenagers who have survived family storms can. "You taught me how to survive without becoming them, without letting anger or revenge control me." I felt a swell of warmth. He was learning more than survival. He was learning integrity, patience, and strength. My mistakes, my betrayals, my pain, they had not broken him. They had built him. As night fell, I wandered the empty house. Memories of deceit and heartbreak lingering in the corners like shadows. But unlike before, these shadows didn't frighten me. They reminded me that I had endured, that I had grown, that I had reclaimed my life. I thought about the man I had been, the man who had trusted blindly, who had been manipulated, who had crumbled under betrayal. I realized he no longer existed. What remained was stronger, tempered by pain, but not hardened by hate. I had rebuilt myself from the ashes of my own despair. Every detail mattered, the small victories, the careful documentation of deceit, the quiet anticipation of missteps. They had believed they could control me, outmaneuver me. But I had anticipated, adapted, and emerged untouchable. I picked up my phone, scrolling through messages from friends and colleagues who had reached out, offering support and relief. I smiled faintly, savoring the balance I had restored not through shouting, not through revenge, but through subtle, deliberate action, and for the first time I felt genuinely free. The betrayal had hurt me deeply, yes, but it hadn't destroyed me. It had reshaped me, forged me into someone who could face the world without fear, without bitterness, and without regret. Liam leaned against my shoulder. "So, what now?" I looked out the window again, the night sky deepening above us. "Now," I said, "we live, we rebuild, we move forward, stronger than ever, and we never let anyone make us doubt ourselves again." He nodded, eyes reflecting the quiet strength. I felt in my own chest, and in that moment, I realized I had not only survived betrayal, I had mastered the art of subtle justice, reclaimed my dignity, created hope where there had once been despair. And maybe that was the most powerful revenge of all. If you've ever experienced betrayal, share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think karma really comes around, or does revenge change everything? Like, comment, and subscribe for more stories.